Welcome to the Raising Confident Girls podcast, your guide to raising strong, confident daughters. I'm Melissa Jones, the founder of Girls Positivity Club and a teacher for over 20 years. In a world where girls often feel overwhelmed, anxious, and confused, this podcast is your go-to space. As caregivers, we navigate challenges together. I founded Girls Positivity Club to provide a place where you belong and get the tools to face today's hurdles. Consider this your regular check-in with a trusted friend, offering insights and practical tips for meaningful conversations. I'm here to help you feel confident on this journey of raising a generation of empowered girls. Let's dive in and raise those confident girls together. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here today. And I have been thinking a lot about just how much it means that you take time to listen each week. And I really hope that these episodes are helping you. And if it's your first time, welcome. I'm grateful for you being here today. And I want to pour into you so that it can have positive impact on your life as well as the girls in your life too. And one thing that came to mind this week was really about a question that comes up a lot from parents and from girls, and that is, how do I be more assertive? So we have really been, working on that as a club, Girls Positivity Club. We talk about that all the time, but it still continues to be an issue for girls and for the parents, like wanting to know, how do I help my daughter speak up for herself, get what she needs out of her friendships and out of her classes and everything. And I think that it's a really important topic. And, even if I think about daily life, we were all really sick last week, and my son is still recovering this week with a bout of the flu. So we all went down with it. And even with that, it's like being assertive about asking for what I needed, as a woman. And because normally I'm the one who takes care of everything. That's the role that I play in our family, which is more of a traditional role that I'm the caretaker when everybody's sick. And sometimes it can feel like selfish when I am asking for what I need, even though I know I've worked on it a ton with myself, and I know that asking for help is a strength and asking for what you need is a strength. But even for me, it's been a whole process of learning how to do that and not being apologetic about asking for something. Like, I just needed to cancel a bunch of things last week, and that is very unlike me. I will go no matter what. Like, if I make a commitment to something, there is very little that's going to hold me back from making that commitment. But then also, sometimes you have to admit that it's okay if you do have to cancel things sometimes. And for me, in that moment, it was asking for a reschedule of some things that I had planned, and, knowing that I was going to inconvenience the people that I was canceling on, and knowing that that was okay, and asking, for what I needed in that case was my way of being assertive. And instead of sucking it up, doing it anyway, possibly getting everyone else sick, which is never a good idea. But I hear from a lot of parents and caregivers that that's a very common thing for us to do. And really, in thinking about the question, how do I help my daughter be more assertive? How do I help her speak up for herself? I have a lot of insights about it and a lot of stories. So one that comes to mind from my own life is more of an extreme example of the negative consequence of me not learning this as a girl while I was growing up. My mom is a very agreeable woman. She's a wonderful person. I love her so much. Mom, if you're listening, I love you. And, she taught me to be very polite, kind, giving, and sometimes that can go in the opposite direction. And, we can try and people please and try not to make anyone mad at us. And I hear that a lot from girls. It's like, I don't want my friends to be mad at me if I tell them this, or if I speak up, I don't want to sound like I'm being a boss, or whatever it is. So it's really changing that perspective. And the case that I'm going to describe is from high school and from the habit of me not being assertive. And that comes from a lot of insecurity, a lot of things that happened in my growing up years at school that didn't make me feel safe or accepted in general. And then for me to ask for what I needed or be assertive was an extra challenge because I was already struggling with so many things in my insecurity and feeling like I belonged and my self-worth and all of that. So this example is when I met my friend group, who I'm still friends with today. I love them so much. We've been friends since middle and high school, early high school. And so one of my friends, we decided, she was my best friend in high school, and we decided to, sleep over, which was very common. We would take turns. And we were at her house, and we decided that we found out about this party from an upperclassman who was like the coolest boy in school, and we were invited. We were told that we were like, could go. And as I think we were freshmen or sophomores, we knew we shouldn't go. Like, if you think back about like your own intuition and growing up, I'm sure you have an example of a time where, you ignored that little voice inside, and this was one of those times. So I'm not proud of this, but it is something I learned a big lesson from. We did sneak out of her bedroom, and we got into a car with some other girls, and we went to this party. Very unlike us. Like, I was not the kid who was really a rule breaker beyond like regular things, like nothing like this. And I think it was like that me wanting to belong so badly made me feel like, well, maybe this is what people do, to get in that crowd or whatever, even though I knew it was wrong, and my friend knew it was wrong too, because we talked about it later and both said like we never should have done that. So with that in mind, we went to this party, and right away there was drinking there, and we didn't drink, so it was uncomfortable in that way first. So we were already in a situation where parents weren't home, there were boys here and girls, and there was drinking and drinking games and all of that. Those things come up sometimes in high school and college, and I didn't know how to handle it, and I wanted to be accepted. But I also knew that I didn't want to drink. I knew that that would be the bad move. So when I was offered, I said no. And that was my way of being assertive, which was a bold move for me. But I think that little voice was really bothering me inside because I just knew. And they called me a prude and, uncool and all these things. Like, called me names because I didn't, but I still didn't. But my friend did. And I had walked away and I was talking to another girl or something, and then all of a sudden I came back and she was like doing the drinking game with them. And I got really mad and I said, why are you giving her that? And again, that was like very out of character for me to be bold like that and to say something, but I knew we were in a situation. And they're like, oh, it's just water. And she was like, oh yeah, it's just water. I'm like, that is not just water. So I continued to keep an eye on her and told her not to do it, but she chose to do it anyway. There was that peer pressure of wanting to fit in, wanting to be with the cool people. And, I felt it too, or I wouldn't have been there. And I kept thinking, like, how am I going to get us out of this situation? And I felt like this, this need to get us out of that situation. So we hung out for a little while, and then I don't remember how we ended up leaving, but the girls that brought us, we must have asked like if we could get a ride home. So they took us back, and the whole way home, they were just, telling me how I ruined things at the party for my friend and all this stuff. And it hurt, because I thought I did do that, and I wanted to fit in, but I knew these weren't my people anyway. So they dropped me off at my house separately and then took my friend home. So I was home. I wasn't supposed to be home. My parents thought that I was at her house spending the night. So this is back before cell phones and everything, and we still had like a landline. So I took the phone off the hook. And back in the day, if you remember, there's like a dial tone, and then there's like that noise that it makes, like that loud noise, like that, when it's off the hook, to let you know to put it back on. So I shoved it under a pillow, and I went upstairs, and I went to sleep. And then my friend went to her house, and I hoped that she had gotten back okay and that she was just going to sleep it off. And it would all be fine because she ended up getting really drunk at this party. And I was also scared because I wasn't a person who lied a lot, beyond like little white lies. I had this internal just feeling that I should not have taken the phone off the hook and that I shouldn't have ever been in that situation or put my friend in that situation either. So I was laying upstairs in my bed and I couldn't sleep. And so I went downstairs and I put the phone back on the hook. And as soon as I did, it rang. And it was my friend's mom, because she was trying to figure out what in the world was going on with her daughter. She was throwing up everywhere. She was delirious. It was like a dangerous situation. And I think back about like, if I wouldn't have, put the phone back on the hook, I don't know what would have happened. But she ended up going to the hospital. She had to have her stomach pumped. She had to have like the charcoal all around her. It was a very, very dangerous situation. And it taught me the biggest lesson of like, I should have woken my parents up. I was scared, as a teenager, young teenager. I didn't want to get in trouble. I knew what I had done was wrong, but I did end up telling the truth, which was the right thing. And I did get in trouble, but not as much as I would have if I would have continued to lie or hide about it. And it all comes back to like me being assertive and me ignoring that inner voice. And that's an extreme example. And luckily my friend ended up being fine. She got the medical attention she needed and definitely didn't drink for a very, very long time. Probably well into college before, because that was such a terrible experience, which maybe was like a good thing. But it just shows that assertiveness and continuing to be assertive and even doing more, I could have done more at that party, could have really helped my friend and helped us get out of a dangerous situation. So I'm not saying that if your daughter isn't assertive that something bad like that will happen, but I think that it's all about building that muscle. And what I hear from girls all the time is they don't know how to say things and they don't want to make their friends mad. They don't want to, they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to say it. And then it gets worse. So like if they're ignoring something in a friendship and they never say anything, it just keeps getting worse. And then it gets to the point where it's gone on for so long that they don't know what to say. And, these kids start with like really little things, like they're hanging out with friends and one of the friends is always on her phone and the other friends want to do other things, or maybe she's the only one who wants to do something else besides be on her phone, and she doesn't know how to say it in a way that would be accepted. And I hear that all the time from girls, about their friends. And it can also be like, if they let it build up, it can cause this resentment and anger inside to where it could eventually blow up and come out as anger, or they say something that they don't mean to say. So these are very common things that happen, and mine was a very extreme case, but I'll give more examples about what I hear from girls as we go on in this podcast, because what I want to do is help you avoid that. And I think in looking back at me, it's because I had never built that muscle. I knew like the danger situation, I should say something, but also if I had been building that muscle all along of being assertive, we wouldn't have left her room to begin with. It would have been like, this is a bad idea. I don't think anything good is going to come from this. I would rather, just stay here and hang out. We used to make up dances. We both were in dance classes and we like to do that. And, and I think we were both just looking for something that felt like adventure or wanted to be accepted in that group. And that can make you make poor choices sometimes. And we want to avoid that with our girls as much as we can. And I think it's sharing stories like that with her too, because I think sometimes we can forget or feel afraid to tell something that was an example like mine, because of course we don't want to promote underage drinking or drugs or anything like that, or sneaking out and give them ideas. At the same time, we want to make sure that they know that we've been through some things too, and what could happen if you don't do that. And that's, that would be the way that I would frame my story, is to help. So what I hear a lot from girls, and this is all ages, this is very young all the way into teenagers and even college age, is I don't speak up because they'll leave me. I won't be friends with them anymore. They'll kick me out of the friend group. I hear that a lot, which is that fear of abandonment. And that comes up just anytime you talk to girls about being assertive and why they wouldn't be assertive in certain cases when they're describing a problem with friends. Like, for example, like they always do what the other friend wants to do. They never get to choose the activity, or they always hang out at their house. They never get an opportunity to do a certain thing. That's very common, but they don't say anything because the friend is happy doing it that way and they don't want to rock the boat. And the fear is really that abandonment, is that their friends will leave them, or that their friends will get mad at them, and then that will negatively affect the friendship in some way. And that's that fear of rejection that comes up, and I think that can follow us even into adulthood. And then another one is they don't know how to say it without sounding mean or bossy. And they don't want to come across as like they want to control everything. They want to say it, but they don't know how. Maybe they're a shy girl. I hear this a lot from more quiet girls. Like they want to say something, but they just go along with it because it's easier. And they don't know really how to even start it with saying what they would want to do or what they think without making the friends mad. The other one is I won't have any friends. Like that's the extreme version of they'll leave me, they'll be mad at me, and then I won't have any friends, which is again that fear of rejection, that fear of abandonment. And then another common perspective and problem that the girls see in being assertive is I'll get a bad reputation. So this is like if I say something, I'll get a bad reputation for being someone difficult that people don't want to be friends with, or for being someone who always has to speak her mind. And, those are all limiting beliefs that are holding girls back. And there are more, but these are just very common ones that I hear and why it's so hard in friendship. And also, even if it's in like a small group, they're working on a project in school and they all have to decide roles. And there's one person in the group usually who decides that they are the leader and they just assign everything to everyone. And it's things like speaking up in those cases, or it's when you are wanting to pick an activity, it's being able to say, well, we always do this. What if we tried something new? So those are very common things that come up with girls having trouble with being assertive. And then what I hear from parents is a lot of frustration or like kind of at a loss at what to say and what to do to help them through that, because it's really easy, especially if you are, I heard this from a mom a couple weeks ago, is like, I'm very outgoing, I'm very assertive, I am not afraid to speak my mind or say what I need, and my daughter is the complete opposite, and I don't know why. She's been raised for me modeling this for her, and I don't know how she is not feeling this. Like, why is it so hard for her? And it being natural to this one mom, she didn't know how to teach it because it had always kind of seemed natural for her to do those things. And in fact, she worked on the opposite experience and like letting other people say what they needed to say, asking for other people's opinions. So she kind of worked on the opposite end to where, she had to be assertive in her position at work, and because it was very male dominated and she just had to be. And in school, that was the way she succeeded, was by being more assertive and speaking up in class and doing those things. So she built that muscle all along, which ended up serving her well in her life, but then forgetting that doesn't come natural to everyone. And oh my gosh, how do I teach this? So I am here to help. And another thing that I hear too is people-pleasing tendencies. So I think about my own mom, like very pleasing to people, has been raised that way. I was raised that way, to always take the smaller half of the cookie, or always offer this, always put others in front of yourself. And that does serve you in some ways. It makes you a very giving person. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it makes you have a big heart and kind and all of these really good qualities. And then the flip side is it can be very easy to fall into wanting to please everyone and going along with things that you shouldn't, or you want to do something else but you don't know how to say it and things like that. And then, the girls themselves can feel overwhelmed because they might have a parent or a teacher or someone in their life who's like, well, just say what you mean, or say what you need, or ask for help, or do this and that. And they're like, it feels so big. It feels like I don't even know where to start. Have you ever done that where it's like, oh yeah, I want to do this thing, and you think of the end goal, and it's like, but how do I start? Like, how do I take the first step? And that's really how we have to think about this, is depending on where your daughter's or the girl in her life's comfort zone is, how do I help them make small steps toward feeling more comfortable, building that muscle of being more assertive and asking for what she needs and speaking up to share her opinions and things, because that's a very important skill for her to have in her growing up years and well into her adulthood too. And I think sometimes parents can get frustrated and just say, oh, just say what you mean. Like, we've all been there where we've been in frustrating moments where we're like, just say it, however it comes out is okay. Like, just say it. And that again can make them feel stuck in fear. And not know how to even well, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to do nothing. So it's that freeze mode. So I want to help you with how to teach that to them. And what you could do is a lot of different things, but I think of these 3 T's. So I came up with these 3 T's that I think could be really helpful, and they are tone, timing, and technique. So the reason that these are all very important is because the tone in which someone is assertive makes a huge difference, whether that's a very passive tone, whether that's a grouchy tone, or whether it's neutral. There are lots of ways to do it, or whether it's confident. So I think that when a girl isn't comfortable with being assertive, asking for what she needs, and speaking up, it can sound very meek, very timid, very much like a whisper, like, maybe we could try that sometime. What do you guys think? And then that is not really speaking up. It's more like asking for permission. So that's one example. The other is just very neutral, where it's it doesn't sound like they care one way or another. And then the other would be they're so frustrated that it comes across as sassy or angry. And all of those can have a negative result, because it can lead to confusion of the other people involved, especially friends. And if she's never done this before, it might take them by surprise. So I think teaching her how to do this in a confident way is really important. And I think that tone is, how you say it in a voice that feels like you, and also is not a whisper, not a shout, but a calm but clear tone of voice. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is timing. So probably when there is the heat of the moment, if a friend group is having a disagreement, the timing of that, the assertiveness may not come across in the right way. Or when friends are busy, and if you think about your own daughter, it's when it's the wrong time to talk about something. And for those of us, me included, who have forced a conversation in the wrong timing, I could tell from the body language that my family was not open to the conversation, or the girls or the kids that I was working with, they were not open to it, but I forced it, did not end well. So teaching your daughter to notice people's body language. And there may not be a perfect time, and they may not, have to wait until, oh my gosh, are all the conditions right for me to be assertive? But maybe pointing out times not to. If a friend group is in an argument, this is probably not a good time to, yes, you can speak your mind, but if they're shouting in the friend group, probably they're not going to hear you in saying what you need. Taking a step back, trying it again a different time would probably be better. And you can think of all kinds of examples of when it wouldn't be the right time. But the right time would be when everybody is fully present. They're, you're making a decision about something, or there has to be a time interrupt. It's almost like, okay, this isn't the best time, but there's no other way that I can say this, and I just have to kind of push through the uncomfortable nature of, it doesn't really seem like this group that I'm in is open at this moment, but there doesn't really seem to be another better time, so I'm just going to do it anyway. So there are those cases too, which I know can feel really confusing. But I think really paying attention to like when is not the time is really important. So probably, not right away in the morning when, fill in the blank. And you could ask your daughter, like, when does it seem like your friends are open to talking about something? And then also it's okay to do it in the moment, as they feel comfortable in doing that too. And then the last part is technique. So the technique is like ways to do this, ways to help your daughter do this. So I think about real life situations. So I had a mom who told me that she was helping her daughter work on being assertive in neutral places. So these could be places like the grocery store. This could be going to a restaurant or a fast food restaurant or Starbucks and having them ask for something they need. Or ordering for themselves. So this is a really easy way to do this. And you might be surprised that there are a lot of girls who are afraid to order their own things or pay for their own things at a gas station or at a store. It feels very uncomfortable because it feels like, the parent has always done it, so they've never had to do it. And it's a way to build their confidence in, asking for a receipt or just ordering your own food or asking for a refill on something. Could I please have some more water? And teaching them like the words, like, what do I say? And I remember even when I first started teaching my own son how to do this at a restaurant, it's like, he's like, well, what do I say? And I think that's a great question for a kid to ask us is, what do I say? Because they don't know. There was a time when, I've had a girl say that she wanted to tell her dad something, and she normally was very comfortable with her mom. She always talked to her mom, and she loved her dad, but they just didn't have that relationship where she would tell him when something was on her mind all the time or something like that. And I know there are a lot of girl dads who are very involved and have a very close relationship in that way, but some dads don't know how to do that or how to open that communication. So I was working with her on what to say. And we went through some things like you say, hey, Dad, can we talk for a minute? There's something that I wanted to ask you. And just giving them those words. And I know that sounds so basic, like, wow, that's like the most basic thing you could say. But sometimes they don't even know how to start. So that's one thing, is in your family life where it's safe, with your relatives, it's maybe inviting a relative to come and do something with your family and having your daughter be the one to ask. Those types of things, or in public at a store, are ways to start building that muscle in a less risky way for her, especially because most of these assertive conversations that I hear that parents want to support their girls in is within friend groups, especially as the girls get older. And even in college, I had a girl who told me that she didn't know how to tell her roommates that she was feeling left out. Like, that was a very big deal because she felt childish that she felt like that, which right away I said, you're not childish. It's a human reaction. It's a human emotion. All humans feel this at some time. And it does feel uncomfortable having to say something. And she had never had that experience before, really. I mean, maybe a little bit, but she felt very accepted in her friend group in high school. And then when she was meeting new roommates, they were starting to kind of do things on their own and not include her. And she felt very awkward about it and didn't know how to say it. So we worked on her expressing her feelings. So that's another technique, is giving them the starter sentences to express their feelings. So in this case, it would be, I know we're all friends, I know we're all roommates, or this would be, I know we hang out at recess, I know we're all friends, but sometimes I feel left out when you all run off and do this, or when you all go to Starbucks and don't ask me if I want to be included, or whatever it would be when you go to a study group and maybe I wanted to study that too and I just needed to know, or just at least know that I was included or wanted. And I would see this a lot at recess with girls who, and even in middle schools who have recess, which really, let's be honest, they just are hanging out outside. There's really not a lot of activity happening besides standing around or sitting and talking, because that's such a need in middle school. But friends just like leaving the mid-conversation, and then the one friend or a group of friends being like, what just happened? And then not knowing how to bring that up to the friend group. So expressing like, hey, earlier when you were hanging out with us and then you just ran off, like we didn't really know what was going on. Can you kind of tell us what you were thinking, or what was happening, or did we do something that made you feel a certain way? So giving them the words for that is really important. And then another way to show expressing feelings is helping her say things like, I understand what you mean, like when they don't agree with something, like I understand what you mean, but I think this, or I know where you're coming from. I was also thinking this. So that is a very assertive thing to say. It doesn't sound aggressive. And I think that's the difference, is when you say assertive to girls, they think aggressive, because a lot of cases they've only been exposed to aggression. And with girls, like being the boss or telling them what to do or being bossy, and there isn't like a consistent model. I know a lot of school counselors teach about this, and teachers do too, but I think on their own, and to see it in real time, it's really a challenge for girls, because they see it as you either don't say anything, or you kind of mention something and hope they take the hint, or there's one friend in the group who kind of dominates and decides what the group does. So saying something like, I understand what you mean, but I think this, or I really want to play this game today. Can we try that? Is, yes, that sounds a little bit like asking permission, but also it's like getting the consensus from the group and what they want to do. And like, hey, we've played this several days in a row, or we've been like doing videos on our phones like a lot when we've been hanging out. Why don't we go outside and shoot baskets? Like, let's do something different today, or whatever that would be. And I think that giving them that language to say that is really good, like giving them a few starters that they could use. And then when something happens, like I think about a girl who maybe got her feelings hurt the day before, or even a week ago from friends, and it's still really bothering her, and maybe they've processed through it with you, or maybe it's so hurtful that they don't know how to process it. And so you work with them through that, but then they need to like say something to their friends. So they could say like, can we talk about what happened last week? It made me really sad when that happened. And them not being afraid to tell their friend the negative emotion that they felt. And the difference again is, when you did this, you made me feel this. That's very different than, I felt sad when this happened. Because again, going back to those I statements, instead of putting them on the defensive and being like, you always do this and you always do that, saying things like, last week when this happened, or yesterday when this happened, I felt blank. I felt frustrated. I felt sad. I felt mad. I felt left out. Whatever that would be, it's giving her that language to express her feelings in that way, which is being assertive. When we were in a group project yesterday and you just gave out all the jobs, I felt invisible because I'm not really good at this job. I'm really good at this other job, and I think it would really help our project this way. So really helping with that is really key. So that's the second thing. So the first technique is real situations in real life, the practicing how to be assertive, and then giving them the starters to express their feelings, and then praising her efforts. Praising her efforts is huge whenever she does any of these things. Like she tells you about it, And maybe it didn't go perfectly, but still praising her, or maybe it did. Like maybe it was like, oh my gosh, this was the key. Praising her efforts for that is really, really important. Even if it's small, like, well, I said it, but they didn't really respond. It's like, well, keep saying it, like keep doing it. Just doing it one time isn't going to necessarily change it. And then the more you do it, the easier it'll get, and the more you'll feel confident and comfortable in doing that, and encouraging her for that. And then another technique is asking for help, teaching her to ask for help. I saw this a lot in class when I was a teacher. Girls being afraid to ask for help, either in front of the class, raising her hand to ask for help, or not knowing how to say it. So sometimes they think like you have to be completely lost to ask for help, when in fact you could just be lost on like the third step, or you might just need a little bit more guidance on, I understand how to do this part and this part. Can you help me with this? Or if they are lost, being like, I don't even know how to start. And knowing how to say that. It's okay. And reassuring them that teachers are not judging, and they won't think like anything is wrong with that. But if you don't say anything, it's like in any of these cases, the danger is if you don't say anything, people don't know. People don't know what you need. People don't know what you want. They won't know how to help you. And then you'll just feel small inside. And that's not what we want. We want our girls to feel confident and to know that it's a strength to ask for what you need, to ask for help, to know how to express yourself. And if the friend does react negatively and they don't like you ever expressing yourself, asking her, is that a friend that you want in your life? Or is this a drain person? Like we talked about in our last episode, are you a fountain or a drain, or be a fountain, not a drain? So those are some techniques that I think are really helpful. And then the last one is practicing sharing her opinion. And then again, this can be starting in your family. I like the blue. What do you think? And telling her to, like with friends, you don't have to like the blue. If you don't like the blue one, you don't have to say that you like the blue one just to go along with what they all think, so they don't think you're weird if you say you like the green or whatever the case would be. And I think that anytime they can practice giving their opinion about something and telling why is really important, and asking her, what do you think about, what we should have for dinner tonight? We've had this and this. I'm really thinking this. What's your opinion? Not that you do that for every single thing, but you do it enough to where, again, it starts to build that muscle. And then you suggest, like, why don't you try this with your friends when you guys are hanging out and you're wanting to do an activity? Why don't you share that? Or if a topic comes up and you have a different opinion, you can say, I respect your opinion. I think this. Or, oh yeah, I see that. Here's what I was thinking. There are ways to do it that still sound friendly and that are still positive, but that let your daughter have her voice and know that it's okay, and she does not have to agree with everything her friends do. And she also doesn't have to come across as rude or like the one that is difficult because she shares her opinion. That's actually a strength. So that is what I was thinking for today's episode, for helping your daughter feel the power of feeling assertive. I hope that was helpful to you. I feel like I always give so much at the end. So if anything really resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. And I would love to hear what you try in your daughter's life, or the girl in your life's life, to help her be assertive. And I would love to do more episodes on this, and would love to know how I can support you more. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much for being here. Thanks for joining another empowering episode of the Raising Confident Girls podcast. Share today's insights with caregivers and friends, building beautiful relationships with strong girls. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're not just a podcast, we're a community. Follow Girls Positivity Club on social media for more empowering content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. This podcast empowers you, supporting incredible girls. Let's create strong, beautiful relationships with the girls in our lives. I appreciate you listening today. Stay confident, stay connected. Until next time, keep raising those confident girls. You've got this.